Error. What's the error? Heads up requires you to go live before.
Real estate agent, are you looking to acquire clients consistently so you can grow your business and your income to live a great lifestyle? This is Dave Finale and the RE Skill Builder podcast.
All right. You see our beautiful picture there, and here we are. Yes, it is Friday. It is July 2nd, 2021. A great weekend coming up for people. Some people are taking off. Some people are working. We're working here. I mean, it's like everything else. You know, this show always goes on. This is, excuse me. Oh, I got a mistake on the banner, so we got to fix that. This is actual show 160, not 159. So usually that's what I usually forget, Chris. So I apologize for that mistake.
I usually forget to hit record. That's my big.
Well, that's a great thing about StreamYard. It does it automatically for you, which
Amazing.
is like, that's a great program. I've been using it for a long time. It's been really great for me. But anyway, here we are. We're Real Estate Talk episode 160, Real Estate Talk TGIF. And this is 157 weeks in a row, just over 3 years in a row. And we've got the great Chris Jones on with us, who is the founder of Guerilla Realty. And, you know, most people will know your company and your business by Fizbonanza because I recommend it to everyone I work with. And I work with tons of new agents. And it's a great way for them to get started. So, Chris, thanks for being on. But there's a question I ask everybody when we get started. And that question is really simple. Do you know what TGIF stands for?
Well, I thought that it stood for great Friday night sitcoms I used to watch with my family, but I have a feeling that I'm wrong since you're asking me. You're putting me on the spot.
I remember exactly what you're talking about. Some of us would remember that, most wouldn't, but it usually thank God it's Friday, but in this case, thank God it's finale. I mean, it's really simple. It's last name. Thank God it's finale. People know it that way, and here we are. Chris Jones, man, you've had a really interesting career from all of our stuff we've talked about over the past few days, and I'm so excited to have you on because, you know, you give people information for free. And, you know, that's the best price that people love. You know, what's funny is you still hear people complain, well, you know, there's old or this. It's the same thing everywhere. It's the same information that people are paying for elsewhere on those big places, those big sites that they're getting for free from you. So before we get into Fizbonanza or all the other stuff, tell me about how Chris Jones got into this part of the business from where you came from and how you started.
Yeah, so that's a great story, probably longer than we actually have today, but I got into real estate because of my dad. My dad transitioned from, when I was growing up, my dad was always in automotive repair, so he worked his way up from being a car mechanic, to actually owning several transmission franchises. And he's a serial entrepreneur. People used to call him, when I was a kid, they used to call him King Midas, because pretty much everything he touched would turn to gold. He was someone that just had a knack for business, and he came up really poor, but worked his way up, owned multiple transmission franchises, and did a really great job at it. But he made a discovery around the time that I was in middle school. He made a discovery that job will wear you out, just emotionally. It's the job that you can do everything flawlessly, right? And at the end of the day, your customers still hate you, right? So they're pissed that their car's broke. They're pissed that they have to pay you to fix it. They weren't expecting it. It wasn't a planned expense, and they're mad about it. And he just found that it was emotionally draining. It's taking a toll on him. And so he decided, he's never one, to back down from a challenge or be afraid of a transition midlife. He decided, you know what? I'm 40 years old, but maybe he's a little older then, but I want to try a new career. And he had a friend work for Century 21 and said, look, Matt, you'd be great at real estate. Come on, let me recruit you to the company. You'd be amazing at real estate. And so he got licensed. And I told you this the other day, actually, when we were talking about this, Dave, but my dad he's an extremist. So he does everything to the extreme. And so as he was getting his license, he studied, every book. He listened to every book on tape. He went to every seminar that he could get to. And he quizzed every broker that would talk to him. How do I crush it in this business? And everyone had their own different spin on it, right? Just like today, right? Everyone has their own different spin on how to make a living in real estate. And
That's
it
right.
was, you got to work your sphere of influence. You got to send postcards. You got to, send out mailers. You got to farm, and, you got to flyer neighborhoods. And so he just took it all instead of just, picking one thing. He just decided, I'm just going to do it all. He took the shotgun approach, right? I'm just going to do it all. Only he took their advice and did it 10x, right? So I told you he's an extremist. So he just went wild with it. So they said, you got to have your 30 closest contacts. That's your sphere. You got to work them every month. He did 300, right? They said you got to blanket a neighborhood of at least 100 houses. He did 1,000 houses. You got to send at least 1,000 postcards a month. He sent 5,000, right? And on and on and on and on. And, he came over from a pretty successful career, thinking that he's, going to make six figures in real estate, no problem. But it didn't happen for him, right? He had literally no clients. I think that first year he did 4 deals.
Wow. Right? But he did all that work though. What the hell happened?
And that was the thing, is he thought, man, the marketing system in real estate, the marketing engine for the average real estate agent is totally broken. That you can work this hard and you can do everything that all the experts say, but do it 10x and still fall flat on your face.
Right.
And so then he said, look, I'm going to take what I was doing in the automotive repair business to get new clients, which was basically posting great online ads, bringing them to a great landing page and start capturing leads. And by the way, this was a novel idea in 2005, right? Really novel idea in 2005.
Right. Because, it wasn't easy. First of all, it wasn't easy to build a landing page. People didn't know what they were. They would go to them. I remember back then when Google AdWords came out, I was buying local terms for 5 cents a click, where now they're $15, $20 a click. Right.
Absolutely.
So, and I was real successful with it until everybody started doing it. I said, nope, got to go somewhere else. Go ahead.
Yeah, that is exactly right. And so get this, he built his first real estate website on Microsoft Publisher. Do you remember Microsoft Publisher?
I wish I could put it on my MacBook. I love Microsoft Publisher. I love it.
So he built his own real estate website that was basically what we call, it wasn't called a landing page back then. It was just called a website. But most websites were designed to give out information rather than capture information.
Right.
His website had lead capture. So you wanted the information, you got to give name, email, phone number. So he generated a lead. And overnight, he went from famine to feast, right? The following year, he took 50, 60 listings. The year after that, he doubled it again. And I was right there along for the ride. I was actually just getting into college at that time. And he said, no, don't go to school. Come work with me. And so I did. I've never looked back. I truly believe real estate's the greatest business on earth. We absolutely love it. But the same problem exists for agents today. And you said it during the intro of this broadcast, is getting consistent clients I think that's you use. Getting consistent clients is really freaking hard. And it's the same problem. So that experience that I watched my dad go through was the germ of the idea for what is today Guerilla Realty. But Guerilla Realty, I founded it with my brother Levi, and our goal is just to build the world's best real estate marketing engine so that people don't have to do what my dad did, which is figure it all out from scratch, right? So I make this analogy all the time. If you had to build an internal combustion engine from scratch, how many of us would drive cars? Not many, right?
No. If we had to build it ourselves, we wouldn't. You're absolutely correct.
But the roads are full, and 16-year-old girls that know nothing about cars can get in and just press a button. And I want to make real estate marketing goof proof. And so that's our lifelong mission, and that's what we do here at Guerilla Realty.
So you want to make real estate marketing goof proof. Okay. So let's talk about the easiest product that you have, because you've got a lot of great products. You've got some free stuff, you got some pay stuff, you got a lot of different stuff that's really cool. And as I said, you coming on, some of the names like intrigue me, right? So I said, I got to look at that, right? Mm-hmm. So, just start talking about, okay, so you're Guerilla Realty, the main thing there is Pipeline Pro Tools. Is that what it is?
Yeah. So Pro Tools is our flagship product. You can find out about it at pipelineprotools.com. And that is our marketing engine. So it's the entire suite of software tools that we use as a local team here in North Carolina to capture 200 plus qualified sales leads per month. Right. So I'm talking about running a Facebook ad and you get a bunch of email addresses. I'm talking about when we say qualified sales leads, we mean name and number of somebody that we know statistically, and we can talk about this later if you want, statistically is going to be buying a home within 105 days on average. Okay.
Why 105 days and not 60, not 30, not 90? Why 105?
Well, I'll spare you the college statistics lesson, but basically, there is a buying cycle, and of course it applies to real estate too, but it really applies to everything, whether you're buying a candy bar, a pair of pants, or you're buying a house, right? And you'll recognize this buying cycle. So the buying cycle, we like to break it down into 3 parts, but basically it's the information gathering stage, which is where the buyer goes out and just looks around and gathers information about what it is that I want, and tries to make a decision about which direction they're going to go in, right? Normally, buyers like to do this part on their own, and I'll give you a great analogy here in a minute. Part 2 is the search phase, which is where they know what they want, and now they've just got to search for the right thing, right? Yes. And then finally is escrow, right? We call it escrow in real estate. You could also call it, checkout. If you're in Target, that's the checkout phase, right? So let's go through the real estate buying cycle, but let's talk about pants rather than real estate. Okay. So when you go buy a new pair of pants, I can't see your pants, but I'm assuming you're wearing a great pair of pants, Dave.
I do have pants on. Actually, they're shorts, but I do have them on.
I'm wearing shorts too. That's what I love about Zoom. Anyway, so if you're going to buy a new pair of pants, Dave, you're going to go into, what's your favorite store? So I don't get it wrong. I don't want to say JCPenney if you're a Nordstrom man.
No, my favorite store, honestly, where I do most of my shopping is going to be Macy's.
Okay, Macy's. Perfect. Okay. So you roll into Macy's and you're going to go to the men's section, right? And the first thing that's going to happen is a Macy's salesperson is going to say, hey, what can I help you with? Right? And what are you going to say 9 times out of 10?
Just browsing, thanks.
I'm just browsing, thanks. And the reason why is that you're in the information gathering stage and customers like to do this part alone, right? And if you're in real estate, you're thinking, oh, that makes so much sense, right? So they have to do this part alone. But pretty soon you're going to find the color and the cut and the whatever that you like, right? Yep. And what's going to come next? You're going to start looking for the right size.
Right.
Okay. This is the search phase. So now you know what you want. You just got to look for the right pair, right? And so what's the next thing you're going to do?
Try it on.
Well, you're going to want to try it on, but what if you can't find the 32, right?
You're going to ask for help.
So you're going to raise your hand and you're going to look for that clerk that you just gave the brush off a minute ago, right? And you're going to say, hey, can you help me find a 32, 30? And you're going to want to try it on, right? Yep. And that's the search phase. And then finally, you're going to say, okay, great, wrap it up. I want these pants. And that's the escrow phase or the checkout phase. And it's the same in real estate. So we know what the real estate buying cycle looks like. And there's all kinds of, there's cool Pew research. Some of this is by NAR, but we put it together and we figured out that the real estate buying cycle lasts on average right at the midway point between 3 and 4 months, which is 105 days. Okay. So on average, when we capture a lead that is entering the search phase, we know that they're 105 days away from being an escrow. Does that make sense?
Does. Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes. I get it.
Yeah.
So all right, 105 days escrow. So let me ask you a question. So we talked about this phase of, it's actually, I equate the search phase, all that I equate to being aware they want to buy something, aware of them, and you, because they need your help. So is there, just as an aside, in your opinion, is there something that store clerk, that real estate agent can say other than, can I help you? Because when they say, can I help you? The answer is going to be, no, thanks, just browsing. Is there a change that they can make to speed up the cycle?
Yeah, so this is where the analogy breaks down a little bit. I think there are some great things that are realtor, because every script that and by the way, if you want to drop a link to this, we have a free app called Callster.io.
Sure.
So it's CALLSTER.io. And it's a briefcase of all of our best real estate scripts. And we've got everything in there from our ultimate listing presentation to our seller conversion script, literally everything. Our Zillow jacking script is really cool. And it's not just us. We've gone around, we've passed the hat, and we went to every guru that knows something about that knows something about prospecting. We say, hey, what's your best script? Why don't you put it into this briefcase? So you got Jason Morris in there. You got Brian Buffini, James Fassini. You got a bunch of different Eenies in there that that all have donated their best script. Okay. And anyway, so we have all of our scripts in there, and you'll notice that they all start the same. And it's just like what you just said, right? You said, hey, I saw that you're interested in 323 Whitney Drive. Is there anything that did you find everything that you need? Is there anything I can do to help? And what do they always say? They say, nope, I'm all set. Right. Just like you told the store clerk, the pants salesperson, you said, no, I'm just browsing. Right. And so there's two things that work. So first of all, you have to figure out what do you say next, because you can't just like say, oh, well, that's a bad lead and forget about them, because that person is going to be buying a house in the next 100 days. Okay. Right. It's a question of whether it's going to be with you, Dave, or somebody else. So no, you can't do nothing. But I think that the great part of the analogy is that the best salesperson at Macy's is going to be somebody that doesn't crowd you and doesn't basically like pressure you. So they're not going to want to stay right on your shoulder, but they're going to want to stay within 10 to 20 feet, basically waiting for you to need them. Right. That's what the best. So I think that's a good analogy, but it does break down a little bit for real estate, because you got to have, what are the specifics? What are the crunchy things that you need to do as an agent to take somebody who says, nope, I'm all set, and turn. And so we have a couple of things. What we like to do is we like to, every script should have two parts. Identify what this lead needs. So who they are. So are they a listing lead or just a buyer lead, or both? Right. Okay. So we like to have that. So we have really simple questions. We'll talk through that in a minute. And then we like to have what we call an irresistible bribe. And the irresistible bribe should basically be an excuse for us to talk again, but where the customer can't wait for us to talk again, right? Rather than them, always like every time you call, they're like, oh God, Chris is calling. Oh God, Dave's calling me again. I know he wants my business, but I'm just not ready yet, right? Right. So the first part of the script is, I always like the most innocent question that you can ask when I say, hey, I saw you were interested in 323 Whitney Drive, right? That came in as a lead on our website. Saw you're interested in 323 Whitney Drive. Did you find everything that you need? Is there anything I can help with? And they always say the same thing. Nope, we're all set. Right. And I say, yeah, no problem. Right. Never disagree. Right. So this is where a lot of realtors say, actually, you probably think you don't need anything, but let me get you to my lender. I'm going to get you pre-approved. Right. Worst thing you can do. Right. This is like improv comedy. They say in improv comedy, you always accept the information. Right. You just go with it. You never say no. So you never disagree with it. So I always say, yeah, great. That's totally fine. Let me ask you, though, whenever you do eventually buy, are you going to be putting your current home up for sale, or are you going to be keeping it? Right. And the specific phrasing always gets them to open up to you. Right. So it's a really simple way to identify who's who. And so this is because we're big time listing agents. We want to know which of these buyer leads are also listing leads so that we can hone in on those. Right. So some people are going to say, no, we're moving out of mom's basement. This is our first home. I ignore them, or I pass them on to our buyer's agent. If they're a listing lead, though, they're going to say something like, well, no, of course we're not going to keep our, we're not rich. We're not going to keep our house. We just got to find the right house for us to buy before we put it up for sale. And then now I know, okay, great, I've got a listing lead. So now I want to offer an irresistible bribe, right? And my favorite irresistible bribe, and we've got a bunch of them, but my favorite irresistible bribe to offer to a listing agent is say, great, well, I don't know if you'd be interested, but we have a free service. It's called a 50-point CMA. This is basically the public version of our bulletproof CMA. We do a 50-point CMA. We analyze all of the data in your entire market, and we come up with a professional price for you. It works a lot like a professional appraisal, but appraisals cost $500 or more, and we're able to do this for free. But what it'll tell you is what you would net if you were able to sell your house in the next 6 months, right? And don't worry, there's no obligation. You don't have to list it with us or anything, but it might be helpful for you guys as you move forward to know how much equity you have in the house. Is that something you'd be interested in? 75% of the time, the way that I've pitched it, it's just irresistible. People say, yeah, that'd be great. And just speaking personally, like I just sold a house. I would have loved, and I do the bulletproof CMA myself, right? I invented it, but I would love for someone to call me up and say, hey, I'd love to do a CMA for your house and give you an idea of what it would sell for in the next 6 months, right? Just out of curiosity most of the time. And now I have an excuse to talk to that person again.
So all right. So you talked about taking the leads and what to say to the leads and how to pull it forward. So Just really quickly, you know what? Let's just go right into it. You just mentioned the bulletproof CMA.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something that I actually know someone that uses I know a bunch of people that use your stuff. And I know one guy who's been so excited about the bulletproof CMA. Talk to us about actually dissect the bulletproof CMA, why it's different, why the presentation should be different, and why it works.
Okay, sure. So first, before I talk about the bulletproof CMA, I got to talk about why we came up with the bulletproof CMA.
Perfect.
Right?
Perfect. Love to hear
and the
it.
reason why, and I'm going to offend some people. So if you're listening here and you're offended, email Dave, right? And tell
exactly. At dfinale@gmail.com. I want to hear your offenses. I want to hear
Okay,
it all.
so I'm going to offend you, but the reason why we came up with the bulletproof CMA is the old CMA method that we were all taught in real estate school that your broker teaches, the old pricing method, it sucks, right? And I don't want to beat around the bush. It really, really, really sucks. And all the new school versions, like the one-click CMAs inside your MLS, are hardly better, right? They suck almost just as bad. And
why do they suck? Why do they suck?
Yeah, so let's see if this sounds familiar, Dave. Okay. So the old school method, whether you're doing the one click in your MLS or you're actually calculating it by hand, the old school method is find 3 to 4 active comps if you can.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Find 3 to 4 closed comps. Again, only if you can. If you can't, 2 will do. Right?
Yep.
So you find a total of 8 comps if you're lucky. And then anything you don't like or that pushes the number in the wrong direction, just throw it out and just say it's an outlier.
Yep.
Right. So you throw it out. And then if you're like a hardcore agent, then you might apply some kind of weird voodoo like millage or you'll adjust for finishes or that kind of thing. Right.
Okay.
Maybe lot size. Maybe you just, and really what you're doing is you just want to massage the number until it feels right to you. Right. Yep. And that's what I was taught. And that's what I did for 3 years in real estate. And it never felt quite right to me. I always had this sinking suspicion that I was basically, effectively pulling a number out of my butt.
Yep.
Okay. And, I remember college statistics. That was like one of the best courses I took before my dad recruited me away from school and I dropped out. Right. I remember college statistics. You have a low sample size. You're going to have a high margin of error. So let's just talk politics for a minute, right? If you were to go out and ask 3 people who they're voting for in the next presidential election, they all said, well, we're voting Republican, right? It doesn't therefore mean that 100% of the country is voting Republican. Your sample size is way too small, right?
Yes.
Right. If that's your polling process sucks, but that's what we're doing as realtors. So we have a sample size of 8, which means that we're going to have a margin of error of more than 30%. Right now, I'm not saying that every realtor is 30% off in their pricing, because remember, most of the time, what it really comes down to, you're just going by feel. Like you're kind of massaging the number in the direction of whatever feels good to you, right? Yep. But mathematically, the system is a total wreck, and it's why so many agents are surprised by the appraisal, right? And so you're either costing your client a ton of money, or you're costing them a ton of time because you're overpricing the home and it's having to sit on the market.
So,
right?
So when we're talking about comps and stuff, you can only use what's there. No, I mean, if there's no more comps, that's your sample size. Explain that.
So let's talk through it really quickly. So we like to use a minimum of 50 data points. That gets our margin of error to under 3% if you're using like the quick and dirty rule. Okay, and that means super accurate, right?
Yep.
So we're going to use appreciation adjusted baseline, which means you take a baseline valuation and then you add accurate appreciation for the correct number of years. So if you go into, and this is available at nerdsheets.com, this is an app that we built that's a briefcase of all of our best real estate calculators. But if you go into nerdsheets.com and you look for the bulletproof CMA, you just click on that. It'll open up the calculator. You can make a copy of it and it's yours to keep forever. Okay. And this will crunch all the numbers for you to make this easy, because it can sound a little intimidating if you're not like a math genius or a math whiz. Okay. I'm a math phobe, and that's why I need a calculator to crunch these numbers for me. So first, we're going to take 3 methods and we're going to average them, and it's going to give us a rock solid, and over 50 different data points. It's going to give us a rock solid valuation that will withstand any amount of scrutiny, even an appraisal. Okay. In fact, whenever I teach this, I have appraisers come up to me and say, "Hey, Chris, that's actually exactly what we do, only maybe your system's a little better." Okay. But the average agent can do this in 15 minutes or less, and you don't have to be a math whiz, okay? So method number one, appreciation adjusted baseline, right? So you take a baseline valuation. It can be the last time the house sold if it was less than 5 years ago. It can be a professional appraisal if they've say had a refinance, or it can be a tax assessment with one caveat. Some states' tax assessments are known to be not accurate. That's okay.
Yeah, I want to accentuate that caveat. It's not a base in New Jersey, at least. It's not a base for value. It's their base of how they tax you.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And Michigan's the same way. I always get agents but here in North Carolina, it's actually not a bad valuation, right? So usually it's lagging by a few years, but it's not a bad valuation. So you take that baseline, and it could be any one of those three things I just mentioned. So remember, last time it sold, a professional appraisal, or it could be the tax assessment. And so you enter that in, and then you enter into the calculator the date that the value was established, and the calculator will automatically tell you how many years has elapsed. So it'll say, 4.7 years has elapsed since then, right? And then it asks you for appreciation. Now, you're going to want to use our appreciation calculator too. So the average agent goes and says, we've had like 10% appreciation over the last 10 years. That's 1% per year. And that is not how you calculate appreciation. That's how realtors do it, okay, using the rule of thumb, but that's not how you calculate. So we have a calculator where you go in and you do an MLS search, and I don't want to get too into the math, so tell me if we're getting too deep in the weeds, but I calculate appreciation based on comps. Right? Because how many people actually know that luxury properties appreciate at a different rate versus low-end properties, right? And condos appreciate at a different rate altogether. And different school zones or school districts will appreciate differently. So I go and search comps, and I search over like a 4 or 5 year period, however long has elapsed since the baseline value. And I go search comps, and I get average sale price for that year. And then I go 5 years later and I get average sales price. I enter it into this calculator, crunches the numbers for me using reverse compound appreciation. And it gives me accurate appreciation for comps over that time period down to 1/100%. Okay. And this is really key because I'm going to skip forward here in a minute. Okay. You enter that into the calculator and it gives you an adjusted baseline, right? So if that tax evaluation or that tax assessment was established 4.7 years ago, it's going to add exactly 4.7 years of 5.67% appreciation. Do you get what I'm saying? So it's very, very accurate. Most realtors, they do the hand wavy vague, it's about 5% a year. And that's why they never end up with good numbers. But if you have a calculator that does it for you, why not?
Hand waving thing. I love that. Yeah.
Okay. So that's method number one. Method number two is active comps, but I want you to get way more active comps than you normally do. So I want at least 12, but really as many as you can find. So most realtors are like, Chris, come on, get serious. There aren't that many active comps in this area. There are if you know how to look for them. So instead of just using that one neighborhood or that one subdivision, I want you to add. So you start with the search there. So you start, search 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms within this square footage range in the subdivision. And if there aren't enough active comps, which usually there aren't at least 12, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to add comparable subdivisions one at a time until you get to at least 12. Okay. And what I mean is not just geographic. So it doesn't mean just like add a zip code, right? Because, sometimes you got, $1 million condo next to the slums, right? So you can't just add, geographically. You have to be the expert as a realtor, and you have to know, okay, when people don't move here, they move here. When people can't get into this school district, they want to be in this school district, okay? And you're just going to add comparable subdivisions until you have the appropriate number of comps, okay?
Yep.
But you had 12. Remember, it's all about your sample size. It doesn't matter whether this property is exactly like the subject property. What matters is, do you have enough comps to weed out those outliers? Okay. And then finally, you're going to do closed comps. And this one is the one that blows everyone's minds, is you've got to get between 30 and 40 closed comps. And this is where everyone says, Chris, you can't do it. But you can, right? So you could find literally hundreds of closed comps if you wanted to, Dave. You just have to search farther back in time. And every realtor is trained. No, you can't go back farther than 3 months. Or even in a slow market, you can't go back farther than 6 months. But why is that, right? It's because the price of properties goes up over time, right? So older than 6 months, they're not true comps. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Remember, as realtors, we know what the appreciation rate is. And if you're using our calculator, you know it down to 1/100%. And so our calculator does it automatically. You enter in how many months back you searched in the MLS for closed comps within the subdivision, right? So you could search back and this is going to blow people's minds. You can search back 48 months. It'll automatically add appropriate amount of appreciation down to the day. And so what you'll end up with is a much more accurate, because you're getting way larger sample size by searching back farther. So most realtors think you can only search back 3 months. It's because they don't know how to add appreciation, right? If we solve for that problem, you can search back 10 years if you want. Does that make sense?
It does, 100%.
Cool. So that's, in a nutshell, that's the Bulletproof CMA. But there are great videos that'll walk you through step by step how to do it the first time. But just know this: if you're listening to this, the old CMA method that your broker taught you or you learned in real estate school, it sucks. Okay, it's no greater. We always talk about how we all hate Zestimates, right? Every realtor hates Zestimate. They either get screwed because their listing gets lowball offers because the Zestimate's low, or they get screwed because they go into a listing appointment and the seller. Nothing's worse than the seller thinks their house is worth $300,000 and it's really only worth $200,000 because of the Zestimate. So realtors hate Zestimates, but the truth is, the CMA method that we all use, it sucks. It's, like I said, it's effectively like pulling a number out of your butt. And I believe that one of the biggest frauds in our business is chronically underpricing real estate. We talked about this the other day. I don't know if you remember. Especially right now. Go ahead.
No, you're right. No, I agree with you. Quite underpriced real estate. Go ahead.
Yeah, so realtors always list at the low end. We establish a reasonable range of value, and we want to list at the high end because you remember the fancy word fiduciary we learned in real estate school, right? Yeah, it's because you have a fiduciary obligation to your seller. His interests become your own, right? And we know that every seller has two motivations. They want to net as much money as possible, and they want to sell it as fast as possible. But those are kind of competing interests, right? Like the higher you list this is basic supply and demand, economics 101, right?
Right.
The higher you list the price, right, the slower it's going to sell generally, right? So we want to figure out, how do you list it at the high end, but have such a great marketing system that you get tons of eyeballs on the property in the first month and get it sold immediately. But at the same time, especially right now in this white hot real estate market, every agent I know, like I just had a conversation with somebody the other day. I said, so we put a house up for sale. We actually set a price record for the neighborhood, and we sold it in 11 days. And they said it took 11 days to sell the house, right? Our average days on market in that area is only 7 days. Like, what did you do wrong that it took 11 days to sell the property? Okay, and so these people are everywhere. I call them 24-hour heroes. You know what a 24-hour hero is, Dave?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Tell us. Tell us.
24-hour hero is these realtors that are going around underpricing properties, costing their clients tens of thousands of dollars, selling the property in under 24 hours because, again, it's underpriced. Like anybody would buy it at that price, right? So they're underpriced. And then when the property sells in 24 hours, they throw themselves a parade and they act like they're some kind of hero because they sold a property under 24 hours. But this is what I always ask people. Dave, you like cars?
Yep.
You like Corvettes?
They're nice cars, yeah.
Okay, what's your favorite car? What's your dream car?
A Panamera Porsche.
Okay, Panamera Porsche, okay? You have a Panamera Porsche, but it's gotten old. It's like 3 years old, and we know you only like new cars, right? Okay? So you put it up for sale. You list it on Craigslist, right? And let's say you list it for $50,000, right? Within an hour, you have two cash buyers come, and they're fighting over the price, and so they actually bid it up, and it goes up to like $52,000. And they pay you $52,000 for it, right? And so you sold the car. What's the first thought that passes through your mind when you sold that car in an hour?
I put it out there too little. Should have priced it higher.
I could have got more money, right? And it's one thing when you make a mistake and it costs you some money, but what about when you make a mistake, a pricing mistake, and you cost your client like tens of thousands of dollars on the single largest asset that any American owns?
That's not a good thing. And it's like,
and you don't deserve a parade. Let's just be honest about that, okay?
Right. There's not going to be a parade there.
No, absolutely. So that's why I'm so big on the Bulletproof CMA. In fact, it's funny, as I just sold this property. It's a house that my wife Hannah and I renovated. We spent a lot of time and energy in it. And before I ever spent a dime in renovating this property, of course, we did a CMA to figure out, okay, what's it going to sell for when we get it up to par. And I knew that it was going to be somewhere around 240 or something, but I didn't know which way the market was going to go. But it gave us enough padding. We were good. Okay. Well, a local realtor, he's like a rock star. He works on like the best, the biggest, best, like the local legend. He works on their team. Okay.
Okay.
I'm not going to say his name because who knows if he's listening. But
Right.
he actually he pulled one of those stunts. We had a bunch of crap out of the street. You know that old trick where the realtor drives by and says, "Hey, can I haul some of this crap away?" Because he thinks he's going to get the listing right. He notices that the house is under renovation. He wants to try to get the listing. So he pulls that old stunt. "Hey, let me haul your junk away." And I said, "Well, no, we've actually got a someone coming to haul it away soon." And then he's like, "Well, do you mind if I?" And he just presses his way in, right? "You mind if I just come and take a peek around?" And I didn't. We were working at the time. I did like 80% of the work myself. So we were working at the time, like redoing subflooring and like dirty stuff. Okay. He pushes his way in. I thought, sure, take a look. Right. And he said, "Well, what if I just made you an offer today to buy the house?" Right. Because he's thinking, he's got dollar signs in his eyes. I said, "No, sorry, I'm in real estate. No, I don't need your help." He said, "Well, what are you going to list it for?" And I said, "Well, 240 range. We'll see. I'm going to do another CMA once it's all done." Right. He looked me in the eye. He said, "You won't get that." I said, "Do you want to bet a beer on it?" Right. And he walked out, never heard. He said we should list it at 195. Okay. This is a local legend, someone who's taking listing after listing after listing during this market. Okay. He said we should list it at 195, right? Price it aggressively. Okay. We ended up selling it for 253, listing it for 253 and getting 253. Okay.
So there's a lot of people out there that are pricing it aggressively, right? And I think I think you're taking a chance. I mean, the way correct me if I'm wrong. So a practice that I've, without knowing about bulletproof C of A, what I've said is, look, what you've got to do is you got to look and see what sold 3 months ago, 6 months ago, and a year ago. I want you to compare those numbers moving forward. What has been the trend with those numbers moving forward? So if you take something from 3 months ago, what did it sell for as compared to what it was listed for? And a year ago, the same thing. When you put that all together, what you think you should list it at in this market, do you want to list it there, or do you want to list it a few bucks higher or a few bucks lower? Lower would be aggressive. Higher would be what you assume you're going to get. But the psychology is so screwed up right now.
Yeah. So there's a lot going on with this market. There's a lot of people who are trying to cash in on the market, right?
Yes.
I see random listings go up and, they're like 50,000 more than they should. I also see a lot of underpricing, right? Yep. And that's basically like, is the price dictated by the agent or is the price dictated by the seller, right? And I don't think that it should be dictated by either. I think that the price should be dictated by the numbers. And so we always like to price it right. And so when you do the bulletproof CMA, I really strongly recommend you guys will love this. If you get the math and you crunch that and you learn how to do it, it will set you apart from every other. I'll tell you this. Okay. So again, it's at nerdsheets.com, but you can download the calculator and there's videos to walk you through it. When you understand your market on this level where appreciation down to 100% for comps like that, when you walk into that listing presentation, we call this setting the table, right? Where people want to list with you before you ever open your mouth. There is a quiet confidence that you carry. This is just something that's unconscious, okay? But there's a quiet confidence that you carry when you know your number's cold, like the back of your hand. And when you go in and they say, "Oh, well, Susie Q told us that she would get it sold in 24 hours or less," right? And I would say, well, I don't know what Susie Q is thinking, but I do know that average days on market, by the way, this is one of my other pet peeves. Most people don't know average days on market, right? Maybe ask me about that in 5 minutes. Okay. But anyway,
Sure.
So Susie Q sold, well, I don't know. Susie Q is probably not using the absorption method, but accurate average days on market is actually 14 days right now. And that means that half of the houses are selling less than 14 days, but half are also selling more than 14 days. So I don't know about that, but also generally when houses sell in 24 hours or less, it's just because they're underpriced. So they're costing you a lot of money. So anyway, when you do the calculator, we establish not a single price, but a reasonable range of value. So it's 5% on either side, right? And I always like to equate it like this, okay? On the low end, right? So let's just give you an example, right? So let's say it's the average comes back at 100,000. So the reasonable range of value would be 95, 100, and 105. And 95 would be the low end, 100 would be the average, and 105 would be the high end. That makes sense? Okay.
Yep.
just for easy numbers. Okay.
Sure.
Now the average realtor, without saying it, is going to list it at 95, and they're not going to call it the low end. They're going to call it pricing it aggressively. Right. And in this market, they'll even fool you into thinking, oh, we're going to list it at 95 so we can start a bidding war. Right. But you're just rolling the dice. You don't know how many buyers or if the right buyer is going to come along.
Right.
You should leave that up to your marketing. So what we do is we list it at the high end, but we make sure that because remember, what this equates to is at the low end, you only need to show it to just a couple of buyers and you'll find a buyer really quick. Right. Because it's an amazing deal. Right. At the average, you're gonna have to show it to an average number of people, and at the high end, you're gonna have to show it to a lot of people to find a buyer at that price point. So generally, how many buyers see the property typically equates to the elapse of time, right? So the longer it sits on market, the more people see it, you could find somebody, right? So if you were willing to wait a lot of months, you could probably sell it at even a higher price, right? And so remember, every seller has two motivations. They want to net as much money as possible, and they want to sell it as fast as possible. And so what if you had a marketing, and everyone should have a marketing strategy that gets as many buyers as possible through the door in a short amount of time from the time that it goes live, right? So most realtors, what is our marketing strategy? Upload it to the MLS, go spam a couple of Facebook groups with it just listed, and then just wait and see and wait what happens, right? And then you're just, twiddling your thumbs, okay? Yeah. So what we like to do is you could call it the shotgun approach. We call it the top dollar playbooks, one of our playbooks that we use. There's basically 4 different pillars of traffic that you can use as a realtor, you can leverage to get people to come see the property. And you want to do it, you want to cram it all in the first 2 weeks. Okay. And so we use MLS and Zillow to get tons of traffic. And there's specific strategies around that. We also use social media. So we use Facebook and Twitter. We also leverage the homeowner's personal sphere on Facebook. Right. And then finally, we also use a great yard sign and we generally generate from the last listing. In fact, the house we just sold for $253, we generated 74 qualified sales leads in 11 days on market from one listing. Okay. And this is just an average listing. Okay. This isn't like some kind of unicorn or something, right? 74 qualified sales leads that of course we're working, and we're going to end up selling them other houses if they did, we also found a buyer within 11 days, right? I actually would have been happier if we had gotten that offer at around the 14-day mark. I never want to sell a house too fast because that means that it's underpriced. And in this market, 14 days, normally that's pretty fast. And in a normal market, 14 days is pretty fast. But in this market, 14 days is a really long days on market. And so that's what I was aiming for. We actually sold it in 11 days, but I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, sure. You said ask you about days on market. The myth about days on market. Talk to us.
So realtors, you want to look up days on market. What do? You log into the MLS and you search days on market, right? Right. Yep. So you do a search and you go to the tabular results and it shows you average days on market, right? That number is dead wrong. It's way off, right? And the reason why is it only averages days on market for properties that actually sold, right? So it doesn't calculate expireds. Anybody ever heard of an expired? I mean, I know people that literally make their entire living on expired listings, but they're not calculated into the days on market, right? So we know the MLS number is going to be chronically low. The other thing is it doesn't calculate for those scammy agents that will unlist a property and then relist the property 30 days to avoid the stigma, right? So this number is way off, and I say it's go test it for yourself. Seriously, Dave. So we have a calculator that's called the days on market absorption calculator. So every other industry on earth uses what we call the absorption method to track and plan for inventory. So like Walmart, how do they know how many pickles to stock on the shelf? They use the absorption method, right? Which is really simple, and this calculator will do it for you, but you figure out how many pickles sold in the last year and how many pickles are currently on the market or on the shelf right now. And then that'll calculate an absorption rate, which is how many times did last year's market absorb the current inventory. And then from there, you can extrapolate an average days on market. This is what every industry on earth uses to calculate inventory, except for real estate. So what you want to do is you want to go figure out how many houses sold and you can do it for comps, for specific segments of the market, or you can do it for the market as a whole. How many houses sold in the last year? And then how many houses that match the exact same search are currently on the market. And what's really cool about this is You ever get asked like, hey, when's this current market going to cool off? Is this a bubble? Is it going to burst? What's going to happen? Right? People are always asking you, right? Most realtors are like, me don't know, right? You're going to know quicker than anyone else. If you're using the absorption method, it's basically extrapolating average days on market based on current inventory. Okay.
Yes.
If you're using the MLS, you have to wait till the current inventory sells to take an average. Right. This is way quicker. Okay. It's way more responsive. So when inventory starts to pile up and it hits a trend, so July inventory is higher than June was, and August is higher than July was, you're going to know that, okay, the market's slowing down, and you're going to know the rate at which it's slowing down. So obviously what we want to avoid as realtors is we want to avoid a crash. We're just like, it goes from everyone's buying a house to nobody's buying a house, right? That would be a bad thing, right? What we would like is that eventually this housing shortage is probably going to, right itself. It's going to reach equilibrium again, where everyone pretty much, is happy with their house. And then we're going to, resume, kind of a normal rate of sales. Okay. And what we'd like is that to be that transition to be as slow as possible, so that there's not all these gaps in the market where realtors are put out of business and, this person gets, foreclosures and all that mess. Okay. And so we're hoping that it cools off slowly, but you'll know before anyone else if you're tracking inventory and you're doing the absorption and days on market that way. Does that make sense?
100%. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So how does an agent take what you have? Let's just talk about the bulletproof CMA for now, right? Mm-hmm. How does an agent do that and sell it? Because we're salespeople, right? Mm-hmm. Sell it to a seller, and another agent's doing it another way. I mean, is there a different presentation method that they need to understand? Because everybody say, well, that's bullshit. They're all the same, aren't they?
Yeah, I'll tell you this. It doesn't. So we do have a great printout, and I wish that it was ready for this interview, but we're about to launch the Bulletproof CMA as a full app. It's going to be free. We're still going to give it away. Download it. It's yours to keep forever. But when you do the Bulletproof CMA, it's going to do a printout automatically for you the same way that we do. And what it is it's a printout that shows the seller all the different comps and everything that and it's really beautiful. Okay. I wish I could show it to you. In fact, this chat over here on the side, can I give you a link that we'll have to download? So I'm gonna chat it to you real quick. Okay. I hope this doesn't ruin the broadcast, but
no, we'll just hey, you know what? Let's make a mess. Doesn't matter.
Okay, cool. So look, GuerrillaRealty.com/printout. This is just a free download. It's going to take you to a PDF that we use.
Wants my information. Cool. Okay.
Yeah, that's okay. It'll take you directly there it's not going to email it to you or anything. It'll take you directly there. And it's a PDF that we print out. And you can, any agent, if you post this link, they can use this as a guide. But what it does is it shows you all the different methodologies that we took into account. And I'll tell you this, you hardly have to say anything. When you show up to a listing appointment with the quiet confidence that, look, I think one of the reasons why the Bulletproof CMA strikes a chord with every agent is that every agent knows that deep down, the method that they use is basically like guesswork.
Can we see this, everybody?
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah, that's great. Okay. And so it shows the reasonable range of value. There's even like a graphic representation of how many buyers would have to see it to find a buyer at this price point. And we use this so when we launch bulletproofcma.com, it'll do these beautiful printouts for you automatically. It'll be totally free. It's just not quite ready yet. Okay. But anyway, when you walk into a listing appointment with the quiet confidence that you know what you're talking about and you know your number's cold, I'll tell you what, your seller can sniff out the BS, right? One of the reasons why we have such a high closing rate is that they're like, well, look, obviously this Chris guy, he knows what he's talking about. Susie Q, who came in with a bunch of bluster, and every time I asked a question, she kind of like gave me some vague hand wavy answer.
Right.
They sniff out the BS, right? And so I'll tell you what, it hardly even matters what your presentation is. The best thing that you can do for yourself, if you want to be a great listing agent, you want to be a 6-figure listing agent or more, you need to make sure that you are a listing agent who's worth 6 figures. And so you need to know your numbers cold. You need to make sure that you have a rock solid or a bulletproof CMA process. You need to know appreciation. You need to know the average list to sell discount, which you referenced earlier. We have a calculator for that too. You need to know days on market from the absorption rate. Okay. And when you know all of these things, right, you're going to just carry around a quiet confidence that you know what you're talking about. And people are going to be able to sense it, and it just makes listing with you a ton easier. Remember, sales is a confidence game, right? When you're confident, they'll be confident.
That's absolutely correct. I mean, that's everything you put together is a little different angle on stuff that people aren't realizing. Because look, I look at it and I say to people, let's stop doing business like we did in the 20th century. Let's realize that we're actually in the third decade of the 21st century, and that there's things that we should be looking at. Let's forget about 5 years ago, 10 years ago. This is stuff that is here now. This is stuff that you've seen through experience of your own and your dad's in the business, in the trenches. This is not something you pulled out of your ass. Isn't that something that you made up because you wanted to be a knowledge broker, right?
Right.
Okay, so you're giving stuff out of pure thought and pure use, pure experience. Chris, we're up against time. I want to thank you so much for coming on. How do people get in touch with you?
Well, you can look us up at GuerrillaRealty.com. You can connect with us on Facebook if you search Guerilla Realty. We're there. And I would love for the way that we communicate with people is our newsletter. So we've got like 34,000 subscribers, and you can join a million different ways, but you go to GuerrillaRealty.com, hit subscribe, and join our newsletter. And all the stuff that we've talked about today, that's what we talk about on a regular basis. And we try to make sure that every email is really valuable. So
that's great. I understand that if they go to pipelineprotools.com/demo, they get some of your playbooks.
Yeah, so I wanted to put together something so that when someone listened to this, interview, that they could say, they could get something free or get something valuable from this interview. And so what we did is our #1 lead gen playbook. You can actually execute it whether you have Pro Tools or not. Obviously, it's easier and more effective if you have Pro Tools, but we give it away if you'll book a demo. So right now, I see that there's a link scrolling across the bottom. It's pipelineprotools.com/demo. Book a time that's convenient for you. Show up. After it's over, we don't care if you buy anything. That's up to you, okay, whether it makes sense or not. But after it's over, we'll give you our #1 lead gen playbook where it's a step-by-step formula. You go and execute it. And the average agent that's using it is generating around 80 qualified sales leads a month using it. And again, you can do it with or without Pro Tools. You don't have to buy anything. We're just here to help you guys win.
That's great, man. So there's two things we're almost done. The first thing of those two is the question that we ask at the end of every broadcast. How can I, Dave Finale, Real Estate Skill Builder, help you build your business and grow your business? What can I do to help you?
Help me grow my business?
Yep.
Let's let a lot of people see this interview. I know I went on some angry tirades about math and numbers, but I would absolutely love the #1 thing, reason why we give everything away for free, while we build all these free apps, while we give away all of our calculators for free, is we want to grow our list and we want to tell more people about the world's best real estate marketing engine, which is Pro Tools. And so the best thing you can do is let's shoot this out to a ton of people. Let's teach them about the Bulletproof CMA and all the other crap that we talked about today.
Absolutely, we'll do that. And as you know, I mean, look, you saw all these people coming on this broadcast, and you saw that everybody got a hat when they came on. So I want you to know that the hat is coming out to you.
Oh, thank God! That's the only reason I actually came on today, right?
I heard that.
I heard from someone else that was on your show recently that you get a cool hat, and so I was like, "Well, hey, can you hook me up with Dave? I want to get my hands on one of those."
See that? I knew it. It wasn't me. So, but anyway, hey, Chris, stay on for a second. I want to thank everybody for coming on. Have a great, healthy, happy 4th of July weekend. Be safe, be careful, be mindful of other people, and just you know what? My word for today in my earlier video was happiness. I want you to concentrate on being happy for today. Don't worry about yesterday or fret about tomorrow. Be happy. Chris, thanks so much. Be right back with you. We're just going to go off real quick as soon as I can get to all the detail, all the stuff I'm working with here. Hold on one second. Here we are. Thanks so much.